If you search the interwebs for comic collecting, you're going to find stuff in less than 2.2 Earth minutes all about investing, all about the value of comics, all about flipping comics. It is a huge part of YouTube comic culture as well. But what you don't see quite as much of, though, is talk of value of comics from a collector's perspective. And I'll explain what I mean by that after the intro. But what I want to do in this video is share with you a few books that are from my personal collection that I think are way undervalued for various reasons, and why each of these books would be a nice part of your collection as well. Hey everyone, it's me, Kevin. Welcome back to Doc's Comics. As I said, there's a lot of people who seem to be preoccupied with the value of comics, how much they are worth. Anywhere on Facebook or anywhere else in social media, you see constant conversations about how much is this worth? How much would it be worth if I got it graded, etc. And while comic collections having value is nice, given the fact that there is a demand for back issues, people want them, and it raises the prices of things, it's fabulous. I mean, you can talk about comic collections for inheritance purposes. I mean, you can use it as a fallback just in case something happens and you can sell your books. But for a lot of us, myself included, flipping books, selling books, worrying about the value of books isn't necessarily the first and foremost thing that's on our mind. In fact, if we're collectors, if we're completists, if we're looking to fill runs, we're looking for bargains. And so for this video, I wanted to share with you some books that I think are undervalued that have some significance, that might be minor keys, that might be first appearances that you can have in your collection for not a whole lot of money. A couple of things before we get into this. I'm going to talk about graded prices, predominantly because graded prices are just easier to track. There are a lot of apps that keep track of it. And raw books, the value of raw books, it's a wild, wild west. It's a wilderness, and it changes from day to day. So I'm going to stick with the graded prices, even though you might be looking for raw books, and chances are I'm looking for raw books as well. I'm also going to give you a list of various price points, a couple that are inexpensive, a couple that are kind of medium, and a couple that might be a little higher, all of which, however, are fun, significant, and might be nice collecting quests for you. So let's jump right into this list. So I'll start with a couple books that are less expensive, the first of which is Star Wars number 7. Now, why is Star Wars 7 an undervalued bargain as far as I'm concerned? Well, the answer is simple. This is the first issue that is an original Marvel story. You probably know that the first 6 issues of the Marvel series that launched in 1976-77 was an adaptation of the film. And then once the movie was over, they decided to continue the series with issue number 7. It's the first appearance of a character called Crimson Jack, who honestly I don't know terribly well, but Star Wars lasted for over 100 issues, and this one, issue 7, is the first issue that is an original story written by the Marvel House without any movie adaptations, and it paves the way for a lot of the Star Wars stuff that's to come in later years. So an underappreciated issue as a result, and you can get Star Wars number 7 pretty inexpensively. You can see on this chart here that I have on the screen that you can get a pretty nice graded copy, an 8.5, a 9.0, for under $40, and that's a graded copy. So raw copies you might be able to find for 10 bucks or less, and getting even into the higher ranges, the last 9.4 sold for $51 on June the 21st, and a 9.6 sold for 79 in on June the 1st of this year. So you can get a really nice copy of this book for not very much money. As far as I'm concerned, it's an important key in Marvel Star Wars. Again, the first issue that is an original story, not tied to the movie. So Star Wars number 7 is a nice pickup, I think. So a second inexpensive book that I think is undervalued and would be a nice part of your collection is this one. It's Destroyer Duck number 1, done by Eclipse Comics. You may or may not know that the first issue of Destroyer Duck was done as a benefit comic for Steve Gerber's lawsuit against Marvel over the ownership of Howard the Duck. And adding a little bit of gasoline to the fire, I suppose, the book is illustrated by Jack Kirby, who during that period of time in the 1970s had his own squabbles with Marvel, and so you kind of have a dual tandem that was launching this book as a parody of Howard the Duck to some extent in order to raise money for that lawsuit against Marvel. Perhaps even more significantly, and I'll let you decide which is which, Destroyer Duck number 1 also serves as the first appearance of Gru the Wanderer, a creation of Mark Evanier and Sergio Aragonis, whose stories continued for over 40 years after this first issue in Destroyer Duck. It crossed over into an issue of Star Slayer. Groove got his own series with Pacific Comics, did a one shot with Eclipse, and then had a long 10 or 11 years tour in Marvel Epic, before moving to Image and then Dark Horse, where it is currently to this day. 40 years of Groove, first issue of which is here. And you can get Destroyer Duck #1 relatively inexpensively, a 9.4 graded, sold in August of 2025, August of this year, for $60. 9.2, 9.0, you can get a nice high grade raw copy of this for 25 bucks without question. So another nice one to add to your collection. Moving on, I'm going to give you a couple of mid-priced books that I think are undervalued as well, and I'll start with this one. This is John Byrne's X-Men #21 from December of 1993. This is the first color appearance of Hellboy. Uh, I'm sure most of you know a little bit about Hellboy. Of course, his first appearance was in black and white. It was in a convention book called the San Diego Comic-Con Comics #2 from 1992, where he makes a brief appearance in that. I think it was an anthology book. I actually don't have one of those. But his first color appearance here in John Byrne's X-Men #21. Hellboy, I mean, Hellboy is an iconic character of the last 30 years. He's been in hundreds of comics, including the entire Hellboy universe, the Mignolaverse, whether it's BPRD or Lobster Johnson or any of the other Ape Sapien, the other books that are related in the universe. Um, Hundreds of comics. It's been in a number of feature films, and I would make the argument that Mike Mignola's world building is second to none in the last 50 years. I mean, maybe you could put Kirby up there and a few others, but the entire Mignolaverse, the entire Hellboy universe is so rich and detailed with mythology and different characters and interesting personalities. And this book is not very expensive. You can get a 9.4. The last 9.4 of this book sold in August for $87. That's hard to beat for a book that is this significant. If you and you can get a very nice copy, a raw copy, a near mint copy, and there's a lot of near mint copies out there despite the black cover, for $100 or less. And I don't think you can beat that. So this is another nice bargain at more of the mid-range price point that you can add to your collection and feel proud about it. The second mid-level sleeper that I'll discuss, and this has been a sleeper for a long time as far as I'm concerned, it's Iron Man and Submariner #1. This book is very insignificant and does not carry a value as far as I'm concerned of the significance of this book. If you remember my video last time, I talked about collecting the big four, Tales of Suspense and Tales of Suspense being two of those. Tales of Suspense ended at issue 99 and then started up, switched over to Captain America, and Iron Man got his own title. Tales to Astonish, if you recall, ends with issue 101. Then it restarts at 102 as the Incredible Hulk, and Submariner gets his own title starting with the first issue. And this book serves as a bridge, really, between the end of Tales of Suspense and the end of Tales to Astonish, and the beginning of Iron Man and the Submariner. So this book predates Iron Man 1. It predates Submariner #1. It continues the story that was in Tales of Suspense and Tales to Astonish and moves into their own titles. Artwork by Gene Colan. I mean, and you would be shocked how inexpensive this book can get. Just some data here for you. A 9.0 sold in July of this year for $400, and 8.0 sold for $257 here in August. It seems to be a pretty plentiful book. It's one that is very common on the internet, on eBay, on Heritage, and elsewhere. And even a sharp 9.2 sold in August of this year for $500. So mid-level book might be a little high for some of you out there, but as far as I'm concerned, given how it compares to the value of Submariner 1 and Iron Man 1, much less expensive, and it comes before both of them. I'll do one book that I think is a bargain on the high end as well. This one might raise a few eyebrows, but curious to see if this generates any discussion or not, because I think that X-Men #94 is in fact pretty undervalued. I remember a time, and it wasn't that long ago, where Giant Size X-Men and X-Men #94 were about the same price. But in these years, Giant Size X-Men 1, even though it's gone down quite a bit since COVID, is still far surpassing 3 times the amount that you get for X-Men 94. And honestly, I kind of like X-Men 94 better. It's a part of the ongoing series, and this might be some of my just OCD running here, but it is a part of the ongoing X-Men series. It marks the relaunch of the actual title with the original numbering, and I think it's cool. No first appearances. I mean, it's the second appearance of Nightcrawler and Colossus and Storm, and a very early appearance of Wolverine, of course. But I remember the days when really this was the book and not necessarily Giant Size 1. So I think this is a bargain. You can get a sharp 9.0 like mine here. I've had this one for a while, but you can get a 9.0 for about $1,800, somewhere between $1,500 and $1,800. So the books have been dropping a lot since COVID. There doesn't seem to be a huge bump yet related to any of the releases of the X-Men films, anything like that. So I think this book can be had for inexpensively. You can get a nice fine copy, a 6.0 for $500. That's graded. Raw, you might be able to get a little less. So it might be on the high end for some of us, but in terms of comparing it, in terms of what I think is undervalued, what I think is a bargain, I think X-Men 94 is still a pretty inexpensive book to get. So that's 5 books that I think are undervalued, 2 at the low end, 2 at the mid end, and 1 a little more expensive. Whether you agree or disagree with me, if there's something I've left out, I only did 5 in this video, so there's got to be a whole lot more. Leave in the comment what you think is an undervalued book, and trust me, I'll do an overvalued video in not too long as well. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you next time. Like, subscribe, all that other good stuff. Take care.